There's nothing wrong with the Corolla Cross. It's sensible, like using therapy to process your anger instead of comment sections. And the new Hybrid fixes most of its shortcomings. The Hybrid improves the performance of the Corolla Cross, so the lettering must reflect this. The electrified trims replace L with S. They also add black badging all around, black mirror caps, a slightly different nose, two-tone wheels, and black roof rails if you skip the base. Feature-wise, you're gonna have LED projector headlamps as standard. Fog lights come on the top dogs, and steering adaptive headlights are available. Jump to the SE like what I have here, and you'll get proximity entry. While still uneventful, the Hybrid styling turns up the spice from plain to lightly salted. If you care about small crossover styling, feel free to tell me your thoughts in the comments section. I think it has some honest charm with its little boxy silhouette and clean lines. I also like that whether you go with these 17 or 18-inch wheels, you still have enough sidewall to keep potholes out of your nightmares.
And unlike most competitors, the XSE offers a power tailgate. Unfortunately, it's also the only spec to have LED taillights. For an entry-level price of $29 grand, the Hybrid Cross is basic.
In fact, if you go with the base S trim, this thing actually forgoes a rear wiper. And the interior continues this simple theme. The layout is straightforward, it has an open feeling, the materials are appropriate for a cheap small car, but they become quickly disappointing when you start comparing it to cars like the Honda HR-V and especially the Mazda CX-30.
The flip side is that it feels durable in most areas.
And they don't go too hard on the glossy black plastic that gets smudged and dusty easily, though it is still present. The comfort in here is a little bit more adequate. You have seats that are very agreeable for a lot of different body types. They're supportive enough. I'm a pretty slender 6'3" and I have no issue sitting in here for an extended period of time. I just don't feel overly coddled, and I wish this had the lumbar adjustment of the XSE.
When it comes to the tech game, the Corolla Cross is a bench warmer. Toyota played it safe, and I'm satisfied with that.
So we have Toyota's new, simple 8-inch infotainment system. It comes with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard. It has a good resolution, okay response time, but I think people will appreciate the layout so long as they work on some of the minor bugs. I think the gauge cluster in here is kind of hilarious. So on the XSE, you will get a 7-inch digital cluster integrated in there, but here we actually have a physical tachometer for a Hybrid, which is kind of entertaining to watch. And the multifunction display gives me just enough information. I do wish though that the speedometer had increments of 5 miles per hour marked. Kind of a weird omission. And for $32,000, it's kind of disappointing that I'd still need to step up to the XSE in order to get durable Softex upholstery, heated front seats, and dual zone automatic climate control.
Storage in here is also just acceptable, and one cubby is actually taken up by a wireless charger that doesn't really work if your phone has a big camera bump like my iPhone 14 Pro.
Standard, you will have 6 speakers with tweeters, though available on the SE and XSE is a 9-speaker JBL sound system with a subwoofer in the back that is alright. The sound quality isn't super good, but at least it's got a little punch to it.
The Corolla Cross comes off the showroom floor looking like a nice Uber.
It may not feel upscale in any way, but I think the no-frills nature appeals very strongly to your traditional Toyota fans. Hopping into the back seat, this has a workable amount of space. I like how low the floor is. It allows for some comforting thigh support. Yeah, my knee room is a little short, but I do have plenty of headroom. I think for small families, this will be acceptable, though there are more spacious in the segment. I am very happy though to see standard rear console vents, and if you jump to the SE, you'll have a couple USB-C ports back here too. The cargo area of the Corolla Cross is where it really pulls ahead of most of the competition. So it's very boxy, and when you fold the seats down, this can compete with some SUVs much bigger than itself. It's a flat area too. The only thing that's really missing is a spare tire. The hybrid powertrain adds excitement to the Corolla Cross in the most Toyota way possible. So we're gonna have nearly 30 more horsepower. The same 2-liter engine, but now Toyota's 5th gen hybrid setup, which in this case employs 2 permanent magnet motors, one up front and then one lonely motor around back. There's no driveline connecting the front and rear. Now, before I show you how exhilarating the performance is, we need to talk about the efficiency. Without even really letting this thing warm up much, around town I'm getting like 42 miles to the gallon. And it's very easy for this thing to get over 45 when it's warmed up.
On the highway, I was getting more like 40 and averaged over 42 throughout my week. The Corolla Cross has a smaller running cost than a tree, and the performance advantage finally gives this passing power sufficient for any setting and most tiny crossover buyers. So what do the numbers say?
That was interesting. So you could really feel the all-wheel drive system at work. So it primarily does drive the front wheels, and then when it decides it needs to, usually preemptively, it will kick torque to the rear. I got 0 to 60 in a respectable 7.4 seconds. That's gonna actually put it ahead of things like the 2.5 liter Subaru Crosstrek and the base Mazda CX-30. Now, since this is a detuned variant of the same 2-liter engine, and it does still use a continuously variable transmission, though it's special, and I'll talk about it here soon, it accelerates, well, mainly just sounds like a golf cart as it pulls up to speed. But because we have the electric torque, it allows this powertrain to have some life without relentlessly beating on it. Now, this new generation of hybrid is supposed to use a smaller and lighter lithium-ion battery, and the motors are also more compact and powerful. I think this is more than enough for really anyone shopping for this type of vehicle. It does become a little bit less spry at higher speeds, and the audio experience leaves a lot to be desired.
So this may be smooth, but I wouldn't label it refined. The 4-banger grumbles over any hill. Make no mistake, the hybrid is less about relaxation than it is about results, and the eCVT is the piece that brings this all together. It allows for instantaneous torque from the drive motor while also utilizing another motor that operates as a generator while spinning up a planetary gear set to allow the engine to reach its ideal power or efficiency RPM. In short, it feels like a snappy CVT. Power delivery is quick and appliance-like.
So while the response isn't as good as it is at low speeds, at higher speeds it still has life. With its standard all-wheel drive, you may be wondering how capable it is. This seems to be rightfully centered around bad weather. We have a 40 horsepower motor at the rear. That doesn't sound like a lot, and that's really not good for getting you over obstacles, but it should be fine for snow. And there's no off-road mode here either. It just uses traction control to try to stop spinning wheels, but again, not the focus. Also, while 8 inches of ground clearance is okay, this has just a 16-degree approach angle.
You would have to hate your bumpers to test its limits. A bigger emphasis was placed on comfort.
Here at 65 miles per hour, road noise is acceptable. I mean, it's not a quiet car. Accelerating up a hill, it'll jump in RPMs. Sometimes the engine actually shuts off if you're going down just a slight hill. The most pronounced thing, though, is usually wind noise, and even that's tame.
For this class and price tag, the highway experience is fine.
Just make sure your expectations are realistic. Driving over a picturesque Midwestern road with potholes and broken pavement, the sporty Corolla Cross Hybrid feels at home. I do feel these imperfections. They communicate themselves into the cabin, but nothing here is really bothering me. Going over this repeated stuff, I think a car like the Subaru Crosstrek is a little bit less busy, but I still find this to be more than tolerable if you live around these kinds of roads, especially with this much sidewall. Now, this has a sport-tuned suspension, and it's fully independent, like the other all-wheel drive Corolla Crosses. And it still feels very secure, not as flat through corners as the Subaru, but confident nonetheless, even if your twisty corners have been tormented by the elements. The steering is the bigger drawback. Not because it's incapable, the car changes direction with little drama. It feels very point and shoot. It's direct. Though the steering weight, even in the sport mode, is just so unnaturally light that even though I wouldn't call the steering experience vague or loose, it's just not something I'm happy with.
And I think, crucially, the RAV4 Hybrid offers a more substantial experience. Around corners, it's a little slower to react, though it's more planted. On bad roads, less translates through the road. Even though the Cross is a comfortable, well-mannered SUV, I'd strongly consider the RAV4 if your budget can accommodate one, and you're okay with some gas mileage sacrifice.
Seeing out of the Corolla Cross is pretty easy. You have good visibility around back, a reasonably low belt line. The dashboard is kind of long, but the windshield is still large, and the hood, while visible, feels low. Combine that with fingertip weight steering, and this thing is just super easy to pilot around town or even tight back roads.
So it's super approachable for any driver.
And while the Corolla Cross is a pretty new model, it seems to be upholding Toyota's reliable reputation.
The 2-liter engine has been trustworthy. It comes with port and direct injection to keep the intake valves clean, and the Corolla Cross itself has not accumulated any common issues that would apply to the hybrid. Way down the road, the hybrid battery could become a weak point, though Toyota does give you a 10-year, 150,000 mile warranty for it.
In the past, when I've talked to Toyota service advisors, they've told me that the old batteries tend to last around 12 years, though that varies quite a bit, and mileage is not near as big of a factor as age. Overall, Toyota hybrids have proven themselves to be pretty cheap to maintain, even in the long run. While there won't be as much of an advantage to it if you plan on keeping it for 15 years and replacing the battery eventually, I think the efficiency, but especially the power advantage, makes the hybrid the one I'd choose. Another update that came for 2023 was Toyota's Safety Sense 3.0, which is a very good system. The lane centering tends to be accurate and very consistent, adaptive cruise control works well, and it features over-the-air updates.
And if destiny calls for the demise of your Corolla Cross, the Toyota performed well in the old crash tests. Coming to a conclusion with the hybrid has been remarkably easy. When I first drove the 2022 version of this, I was most disappointed with the 2-liter's power, the bland personality, and toy car steering. The hybrid may have added dark accents and a firmer suspension, but Toyota never intended on fixing the fun factor. Instead, they did what they do best: play to the audience. This is arguably the most straightforward, practical, and reliable offering in the segment. The GR fanboy car reviewers like myself may want some more zest, which it could desperately use, yet just adding the hybrid and a fresh infotainment system was the smarter choice. It would take way too many alterations to make this as nice as a Mazda CX-30, as confident and capable as a Crosstrek, or as well-rounded as the HR-V. So adding class-leading efficiency and reassuring acceleration to its pragmatic list of strong suits should be enough to sway people that were previously on the fence. I may not love it, and I think Toyota could make it more desirable, but I respect its dedication to people who place function over emotion. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then leave a like to help me take on the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe and hit the notification bell for more fun, detailed car content without fluff. Check out my Patreon for an additional podcast, and I'll catch you in the next one.